All right, so get ready because we are diving into existentialism today with Sartre's Nausea.
Oh,
Yeah,
nausea.
this one's it's a doozy.
Yeah.
It's not your light beach read. This is
No.
going to hit you right between the eyes.
It's dense.
It's dense, and we're talking about like big questions of existence here and like what it means to be human, and we're thrown right into this world with our main man Antoine Roquentin, who is having like a full-blown existential crisis.
Yeah, he is just not having a good time. And
Right.
Sartre really, I think, forces us to confront this like really visceral experience of like what it means to kind of be right at the throes of this kind of crisis.
Yeah, and it's not like a regular crisis of like, oh, I'm having a bad day. It's like the floor is falling out beneath you and
Oh.
suddenly nothing makes sense.
Right. It's like the rug's been pulled out and like you're
Yeah.
questioning everything you thought you knew about the world and yourself.
Yeah, and this feeling that he's having this existential angst. It's not just like a nebulous feeling of unease.
No.
Sartre gives it this name, nausea.
Mm-hmm.
And he really like digs into it, describes it with this incredibly vivid language. Like, it's almost like he's trying to make you feel it too, you know? Like
Yeah.
he says it's like a puddle of warm milk or things are divorced from their names. And it's so strange,
Yeah.
but it just gets under your skin.
And I think that's the point, right? He's trying to get us to understand that the world we think we know, the meanings we've kind of projected onto it, they're not necessarily inherent.
It's like he's peeling back the layers of reality.
Exactly. He's like, look at this like really basic fundamental level. There is no inherent meaning. It's just there.
So like, what does that even mean then? How do we function?
Well, that's the question, right? And this nausea that Roquentin is feeling, it's this realization that the world is absurd.
Okay, so we've got absurdity, we've got this nausea. It's like a recipe for disaster.
Pretty much. And Roquentin, bless his heart, he's trying to find a way out. He's desperately seeking these like adventures.
Adventures.
Yeah, he thinks if he can just have these exciting experiences, it'll give his life meaning.
Okay, so he's looking for external meaning.
Exactly. He's looking for something outside of himself to give him purpose.
And he keeps going back to these past experiences. Like he talks about this really tense encounter he had with this Moroccan guy.
Yeah, it's like he's clinging to these memories, hoping they'll spark something.
But they're not working, are they? He's still just as lost as he was before.
Well, and that's what's so interesting about Sartre's argument. He's saying these classic adventures, the ones we read about in books or imagine ourselves having, they're just illusions. Life isn't a storybook. It's messy and unpredictable, and sometimes it's just plain absurd.
So it's not about the adventures themselves, it's about what we make of them.
Exactly. It's about the meaning we create from those experiences.
So Roquentin's going about this all wrong.
In a way, yes. He's searching for meaning in all the wrong places, looking for it externally instead of internally.
So it's like an inside job, this whole meaning of life thing.
You could say that existentialism really throws a wrench in the gears of traditional thinking. It says we're totally free to define ourselves to make our own purpose in a world that doesn't offer one.
Okay, but that's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like we have to figure it all out on our own.
It can feel that way, but that freedom, that responsibility, it's also incredibly liberating.
So we have this freedom, but it's also kind of terrifying, right? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, and Sartre doesn't give us a step-by-step guidebook.
Figures.
But he does offer some clues through the characters and their struggles. Like, remember the self-taught man?
Yeah, that guy was interesting. He seemed so sure of himself, so certain about the world.
Exactly. He represents a very different approach to existence than Roquentin. He finds comfort in pre-existing structures like humanism. It's like he's saying, look, there are some universal truths, some things we can all agree on.
Right, like good and bad, right and wrong, that kind of thing.
Exactly. He clings to those beliefs because they offer a sense of order, a sense of meaning in a world that can feel very chaotic.
Which is totally understandable. But it's like he's choosing to ignore the elephant in the room, the whole absurdity thing.
In a way, yes. He's choosing a different path than Roquentin. And Sartre wants us to consider both the comfort of predefined beliefs versus the existential leap of faith.
So it's like choosing between a prepackaged vacation and charting your own course through uncharted territory. One offers comfort, the other, well, a whole lot of uncertainty.
Exactly. And nausea really forces us to confront that choice. Do we cling to the familiar, even if it means ignoring the absurdity of existence? Or do we embrace the freedom to create our own meaning, even if it's terrifying?
Okay, so how do we even begin to create our own meaning? Seems like a pretty tall order.
Let's go back to Roquentin for a second.
Yeah.
Remember that scene where he's listening to the jazz record?
Yeah, he seems to actually find a moment of peace there. It's like the music cuts through all the noise,
Yeah.
all the existential angst.
And that's where Sartre introduces art as a possible response to the absurdity. It's not that the music has all the answers, but it represents a creative act, an attempt to create beauty and order in a world that often lacks both.
Because it's like the music creates this little bubble of meaning, a shared experience that transcends all the chaos, even if it's just for a moment.
Precisely.
Hmm.
And that act of creation, it's not limited to just art. It can be anything. Writing, building relationships, making choices. It's about taking action in the face of absurdity.
So we're not just passive bystanders in this existential play.
Yeah.
We have a role to play even if we're the ones writing the script.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our actions have meaning even in a meaningless world.
But isn't that a bit of a paradox? Like, if there's no inherent meaning, then how can our actions have meaning?
Ah, that's the existential dilemma. But think about it this way. The meaning might not be objective or universal, but it's still real to us. It's about the values we choose to live by the impact we have on others, the legacy we leave behind.
So it's about creating our own sense of purpose, even if it's only meaningful within the context of our own lives.
Exactly. It's about finding what resonates with us, what gives us a sense of fulfillment, even if it doesn't answer the big cosmic questions.
Okay, so how does Roquentin deal with this? Does he figure out how to create his own meaning?
Well, he's still wrestling with it. But there are glimmers of hope. Remember, he's writing a book about this historical figure, Roquentin.
Yeah, he's been struggling with that for a while now. It's like he's
Oh,
hit a wall.
and that struggle is important. It's through the act of writing that Roquentin starts to see a way forward, a way to grapple with the absurdity.
So it's like by creating something, even if it's just a book, he's pushing back against the meaninglessness. He's saying,
Huh?
okay, maybe the world is absurd, but I can still make something meaningful out of it.
Exactly. And that's a powerful notion. It's about finding your own way to create order out of chaos, to find beauty in the unexpected, to make something meaningful, even if it's just for yourself.
So he's finding some hope in creation, even if it's hard, even if it's messy.
Exactly. And that's what Sartre is getting at. It's not about finding easy answers or pretending the absurdity doesn't exist. It's about confronting it head on and saying, okay, this is the world I've been given. What am I going to do with it?
And it's not like he has some kind of epiphany and everything suddenly makes sense.
Yeah.
It's more like he's taking it one day at a time, one sentence at a time.
Exactly. It's a process, a struggle. And speaking of struggles, let's not forget about Annie.
Oh man, Annie. She's back in the picture.
She is. And she's not the same Annie that Roquentin remembers.
Talk about a blast from the past.
Yeah.
But it's like they're both different people now. They've both been through the ringer.
Exactly. They're both grappling with the passage of time, the loss of innocence, the realization that those perfect moments they once chased are gone.
Yeah, like that feeling of, I'll always remember this moment.
Yeah.
It never quite holds up, does it? The memory fades, things change.
Exactly. And that's part of what they're both struggling with, the realization that the past is gone and they can't get it back.
So what happens with Annie and Roquentin? Do they reconnect?
Not really. They try to recapture what they had, but it's no use. They've both changed too much.
So it's like they're two ships passing in the night, each caught in their own existential storm.
Exactly. And it's interesting to see how they each react to this realization. Annie seems resigned, almost defeated by it all. But Roquentin, there's a glimmer of something else in his despair. A sense of liberation, almost.
Liberation. How so?
Well, it's like he's finally letting go of the past, letting go of the idea that there's some preordained meaning out there waiting for him. He's embracing the freedom to choose his own path, even if it means facing the absurdity head on.
So it's like he's finally stepping into that existential unknown.
Exactly. And it's not easy. It's scary, but it's also incredibly empowering.
So what's the takeaway here? What can we learn from Roquentin's messy, confusing existential journey?
Well, I think it's about recognizing that life is inherently absurd. There's no escaping that. But that doesn't mean we can't find meaning or purpose. It just means we have to create it ourselves.
So it's not about finding the answers in a book or from some guru on a mountaintop. It's about looking inward and figuring out what matters to us.
Exactly. It's about defining our own values, setting our own goals, creating our own meaning in a world that doesn't offer easy answers.
Which is a pretty daunting task. But also kind of exciting when you think about it. Like, we have the freedom to choose who we want to be, what we want to stand for.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of existentialism. It's not a philosophy of despair. It's a philosophy of freedom. It's about embracing the absurdity of existence and saying, yes, and.
Yes, and I like that. It's like saying, okay, this is the hand I've been dealt. Now what am I going to do with it?
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of our lives, even in the face of the unknown.
So maybe Nausea isn't just a book about existential angst. Maybe it's a call to action, a reminder that we're all in this together, trying to make sense of this crazy thing called life.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, it's about finding a little bit of beauty and meaning along the way.
Well said. Well said. So to everyone listening out there, keep those existential questions coming and keep searching for those moments of beauty and meaning wherever you can find them.
And don't be afraid of a little nausea along the way.
That's a wrap, folks.
Okay.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.